The USS Harmony moved slowly through the dark space toward the bright orange planet. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the world grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked like a burning coal floating in space. Heat. Waves danced around it even from this distance. "We are getting close to Paraxis Prime," said the navigation officer. "The planet's surface temperature is reading 800 degrees in most places." Jake nodded and adjusted his uniform. Today would make history. No human had ever visited the Paraxian homeworld before. The Fire People had finally agreed to meet with Earth after 50 years of radio messages back and forth. Ambassador Lisa. Carter walked onto the bridge, carrying a thick folder of papers. She looked worried as always. Lisa had spent 3 years learning everything about Paraxian culture. She knew more about the Fire People than any other human alive. "Captain, I need to remind you again about the safety rules," Lisa said. "The Paraxians cannot touch other species without causing terrible burns. Their skin temperature never drops below 400 degrees. Even their breath can melt most metals." "I remember the briefings," Jake replied. "No direct contact. Keep distance of at least 10 feet. Wear the heat suits during all meetings." The ship shook slightly as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the windows, Jake could see cities that glowed like lava flows. Tall spires reached up toward space. Everything on this world seemed to be made of fire and crystal. Marine Sergeant Kevin Hayes entered the bridge and saluted. Kevin was a big man with scars on his arms from an old accident. He had volunteered for this mission, even though everyone said it would be dangerous. "Sir, the landing party is ready," Kevin reported. "We have the new heat suits and the special gifts for the Emperor." Jake looked at his crew. Besides himself, the landing party included Lisa, Kevin, and 3 other officers. They would be the first humans to walk on Paraxis Prime. If things went wrong, they might also be the last. "Take us down to the landing area," Jake ordered. The Harmony landed in a large courtyard made of black stone. The stone seemed to glow with inner heat. Giant pillars rose around them like burning trees. In the distance, Jake could see figures moving toward their ship. The Paraxians came closer slowly. They looked like humans, but much taller. Their skin glowed bright orange and red like hot metal. Flames danced around their heads like hair made of fire. Their eyes were yellow and bright as stars. "Remember everyone," Lisa whispered into her radio. "Show respect, but keep your distance. These people can kill us just by getting too close." The landing party put on their thick heat suits and walked down the ship's ramp. Even with the suits, Jake could feel the terrible heat pressing against him. The air shimmered and danced around the Paraxians. The tallest Paraxian stepped forward. His skin burned brighter than the others. Flames crowned his head like a golden crown. When he spoke, his voice sounded like crackling fire. "Welcome, humans, to Paraxis Prime. I am General Theron, voice of Emperor Vextar. The Emperor waits to meet with you in the Great Hall." Lisa bowed carefully. "We are honored to be here, General Theron. I am Ambassador Lisa Carter. This is Captain Jake Morrison and our security chief, Kevin Hayes." The general's flame crown flickered with what might have been amusement. "Follow. U.S., but stay behind the white lines on the ground. The heat will be less dangerous there." They walked through the palace halls. Everything was made of crystal and burning stone. The walls glowed with their own light. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful or so deadly. Other Paraxians watched them pass. Some had skin that burned blue or green instead of orange. "How do they build anything without melting it?" Kevin whispered. "Special crystals that can handle." "The heat," Lisa answered. "They mine them from the planet's core." They entered a massive throne room. The ceiling rose high above them, like the inside of a volcano. At the far end sat Emperor Vextar on a throne made of pure fire. He was the largest Paraxian Jake had ever seen. His flames burned white and gold, but it was the figure standing beside, the throne that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. She was clearly female and moved with deadly grace. Her skin glowed like molten gold. Her flame hair danced in patterns that seemed almost like music. Her eyes were amber crystals that seemed to see everything. "That is Princess Zarathis," Lisa whispered. "The Emperor's daughter. She commands their space fleet. They say she has never been defeated in battle." The princes looked directly at the human visitors. For a moment, Jake felt like she was looking right into his soul. Then she turned away and whispered something to her father. Emperor Vextar stood up from his burning throne. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire hall like thunder. "Humans of Earth, you have traveled far to reach our world. We have heard many things about your species. Some say you are brave. Others say you are foolish. Today, we will learn which is true." The Emperor's flames grew brighter. "For too long, our people have stood alone in this galaxy. Other species fear us or try to use us as weapons. But you humans have asked for friendship instead of fear. This interests us greatly." Princess Zarathis stepped forward. Her voice was like wind through fire. "Father, perhaps we should test their courage before we speak of friendship. Words are easy. Actions show truth." Jake felt a chill despite the terrible heat. Something in the princess's tone warned him that this meeting would not be simple. The real test was just beginning. The next morning brought terrible news. Kevin Hayes woke up in his quarters aboard the USS Harmony when the ship's alarm started blaring. He jumped out of bed and ran to the bridge where Captain Jake Morrison was talking quickly with several officers. "What's happening?" Kevin asked. "The Corvin Syndicate just sent a war fleet to this system," Jake replied with anger in his voice. "They're demanding that the Paraxians join their war against human colonies." Lisa Carter looked up from her computer screen. Her face was pale with worry. "The Corvins have been trying to build an alliance against Earth for years. If they get the Paraxians to join them, we'll lose this whole sector of space." Through the ship's windows, Kevin could see dark ships moving near the planet. The Corvin vessels looked like giant metal spiders with weapons covering every surface. There were at least 20 of them surrounding Paraxis Prime. "The Emperor has called for another meeting," Jake announced. "He wants to hear what both sides have to offer before he makes his decision." 2 hours later, a human delegation stood once again in the great throne room. This time they were not alone. On the other side of the hall stood the Corvin representatives. The Corvins were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and too many arms. Their leader wore armor made of black metal. Emperor Vextar sat on his burning throne with Princess Zarathis beside him. The princess looked more serious than before. Her golden flames moved in angry patterns around her head. "Speak, Corvin ambassador," the Emperor commanded. "Tell us why we should join your war." The Corvin leader stepped forward. His voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Great Emperor, the humans are a disease spreading through the galaxy. They take planets that do not belong to them. They make treaties they do not keep. Join us, and we will give you 10 human worlds to burn as you wish." Kevin felt his hands form into fists. The Corvins were lying about everything. Humans had never broken a treaty with anyone. But he stayed quiet and let Ambassador Carter handle the talking. "Emperor Vextar," Lisa said calmly, "the Corvins speak of gifts they cannot give. Those worlds belong to free human families. We offer something better than conquest. We offer friendship and trade between equals." The Emperor's flames flickered. As he thought, both offers are interesting. But how can we know which species speaks truth? Words are wind. We need proof of character. Princess Zarathis stood up from her place beside the throne. Her amber eyes looked directly at the human delegation. Father, let us use the old ways to test them. Let us hold the trial of burning trust. A shocked silence filled the throne room. Even the Corvin ambassador stepped backward in surprise. Kevin could hear other Paraxians whispering to each other in their fire language. What is this trial? Jake asked. The princess's voice rang out clear and strong. For 1,000 years, our people have used this trial to test the courage of other species. A champion from each group must approach me without any protection. They must prove their bravery by showing they trust me completely. Lisa's face went white with fear. Your Highness, no human could survive getting close to you. Your skin temperature would kill us. Many have tried, the princess replied. Corvin warriors, Centauri diplomats, even the mighty Thorgan berserkers. All have failed. Most suffered terrible burns. Some died from the heat. A Corvin ambassador laughed with a sound. Like breaking glass, humans are weak creatures. They cannot even survive in hot climates on their own worlds. This trial will prove they are not worthy allies. Princess Zarathis raised her hand for silence. The trial is simple. Each champion must walk to me across this hall. They must place their hand upon my arm and speak words of trust. Whoever can do this proves their species has true courage. Emperor Vexstar nodded slowly. The trial will happen at sunset. Each side will choose their champion. Whoever succeeds will have proven their people worthy of Paraxian friendship. As they walked back to their ship, Lisa was almost crying with worry. This is impossible, she said. No human can get within 5 feet of the princess without catching fire. We might as well surrender now. But Kevin was thinking hard about something. 3 years ago, he had been working near a plasma reactor when it exploded. Most people thought he would die from the energy burns. Instead, something strange had happened to his body. The doctor said his skin and organs had changed in ways they didn't understand. I'll do it, Kevin announced suddenly. Everyone stopped walking and stared at him. Kevin, you can't be serious, Jake said. You heard what happened to the others. Some of them died. I'm different, Kevin replied. That reactor accident changed me somehow. I can handle heat better than normal humans. Maybe it's enough. Engineering. Officer Danny Walsh stepped forward. Let me try first. I've worked with high-temperature engines my whole career. I know how to handle heat. Lisa shook her head. Neither of you understands how hot the princess burns. This isn't like working near a furnace. Her skin temperature is 800 degrees. That's hot enough to melt copper. But Kevin had made up his mind. During their first meeting with the princess, he had seen something in her amber eyes. She wasn't just a weapon or a test. She was a person who had spent her whole life being too dangerous for anyone to get close to. He understood what that loneliness felt like. I'm doing this, Kevin said firmly. Maybe I'll fail like the others, but someone has to try. If the Corvins win this trial, Earth loses everything. That evening, Danny Walsh insisted on going first. He put on a special heat suit and walked slowly across the throne room toward Princess Zarathis. The princess stood perfectly still in the center of the hall. Her golden skin glowed brighter than ever before Danny made it halfway across the room before the heat became too much. His suit started smoking and melting. He collapsed to his knees and had to be carried away by medical teams. The Corvin champion went next. He was a massive warrior covered in thick armor. He made it 3 steps closer than Danny before his armor began to glow red-hot. He fell backward screaming and had to be rushed to their medical bay. Now it was Kevin's turn. He stood at the edge of the throne room wearing nothing but his normal uniform. Lisa tried one last time to stop him. Kevin, please don't do this. We'll find another way to convince the Emperor. Kevin looked across the hall at Princess Zarathis. She was staring back at him with an expression he couldn't read. For just a moment, he thought he saw sadness in her amber eyes. "Some things are worth the risk," Kevin said quietly. Then he started walking toward the princess, whose skin burned like a star. Kevin Hayes took his first step toward Princess Zarathis and immediately felt the heat hit him like a wall. The air around the princess shimmered and danced with waves of burning energy. Even from 30 feet away, sweat began forming on his forehead. The entire throne room was silent, except for the crackling sound of the princess's flames. Emperor Vextar leaned forward on his burning throne. A Corvan ambassador watched with eager eyes, waiting for another human to fail and prove his point about human weakness. Kevin took another step. The heat grew stronger. His skin began to tingle with the same feeling he remembered from the reactor accident 3 years ago. Something deep inside his body was responding to the temperature, changing in ways the doctors had never fully explained. "Stop, human," Princess Zarathis called out. Her voice carried across the hall like wind through fire. "You have already proven more courage than most. There is no shame in turning back now." But Kevin kept walking. He could see concern in the princess's amber eyes. In all the trials before this one, she had never warned someone to stop. She had watched warriors and diplomats from dozens of species try and fail to reach her. Most of them had suffered terrible burns. Some had died. Why does she care if I get hurt? Kevin thought to himself. She doesn't even know me. Another step closer. The heat was getting serious now. Kevin's uniform started to smoke at the edges. His skin was turning red, but not burning the way it should have been. The reactor accident had changed more than just his appearance. His whole body worked differently now when it came to heat and energy. Lisa Carter stood at the edge of the throne, room with tears in her eyes. She wanted to run forward and drag Kevin back to safety, but Captain Jake Morrison held her arm gently. They both knew this was Kevin's choice, to make 20 feet away from the princess now. Kevin could feel his hair starting to curl from the heat. The metal buttons on his uniform were getting warm enough to burn normal skin. But instead of pain, Kevin felt something else. The energy radiating from Princess Zarathis reminded him of something familiar and almost comforting. The princess was staring at him with growing amazement. No creature had ever made it this close to her without protective gear, even her own. People needed special crystals to stand near her for very long. Yet this human kept walking toward her, as if her deadly heat was nothing more than warm sunlight. How is this possible? She whispered to herself. Kevin heard her words and answered, while still walking. 3 years ago, I was caught in a plasma reactor explosion. Most people thought I would die. Instead, something changed inside me. I've never understood what happened until now. 15 feet away. Kevin's skin was bright red now, and smoke was rising from his clothes. But he wasn't screaming or falling down like the others had. His body was handling the heat in a way that should have been impossible for any human. The Corvan ambassador was making angry hissing sounds. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak creatures who couldn't even survive in their own deserts, without special equipment. Yet here was one walking toward a being whose skin burned hot enough to melt metal. Emperor Vextar's flames were burning brighter with excitement. In 1,000 years of trials, he had never seen anything like this. The other Paraxians in the throne room were whispering to each other in amazement not 10 feet away now. This was as close as anyone had ever gotten to Princess Zarathis without dying. Kevin's uniform was charred and smoking. Parts of his skin were starting to blister. But his eyes never left the princess's face. For the first time in her long life, Princess Zarathis felt afraid. Not afraid of being hurt, but afraid of hurting someone else. She had spent over a century watching other beings suffer terrible burns just for trying to get near her. Now this strange human was closer than anyone had ever been, and she could see the pain beginning to show on his face. "Please stop," she said more urgently. "I do not wish to cause you harm. You have already proven your courage beyond all doubt." But Kevin took another step, 9 feet away, 8 feet, 7 feet. His skin was blistering now, and his breathing was getting harder. The heat was becoming almost too much, even for his changed body to handle. "Why are you doing this?" the princess asked. Her voice was filled with confusion, and something that might have been pain. Kevin stopped walking for a moment and looked directly into her amber eyes. "Because I've seen the loneliness in your eyes. I know what it feels like to be different from everyone else, to be too dangerous for people to get close to." The princess felt something she had never experienced before. This human wasn't trying to reach her just to prove his courage or win some political victory. He was doing it because he understood her pain. "You could die," she whispered. "Maybe," Kevin replied. "But someone needs to show you that not everyone is afraid of who you are." 6 feet away now, 5 feet. Kevin's legs were shaking from the effort of staying upright. The heat was so intense that the stone floor beneath his feet was starting to crack. His skin was red and blistered, but somehow he was still conscious. Princess Zarathis was trembling with emotions she didn't understand. Fear, hope, and something else she had no name for. "Stop, please. I command you to stop." 4 feet away. Kevin's vision was starting to blur from the heat and pain, but he could still see the princess clearly. Her golden skin was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Her flames danced around her like a crown made of living light. "Almost there," Kevin whispered to himself. 3 feet away. 2 feet. The heat was so intense now that Kevin's skin was starting to smoke. He could smell his own hair burning. Pain shot through his entire body like lightning. But still, he took one more step. 1 foot away from Princess Zarathis. Kevin raised his hand slowly toward her face. The princess stood, perfectly still, too amazed to move. No being in the history of her people had ever gotten this close to her. "You did it," she breathed. "You actually did it." Kevin's hand was inches from her cheek now. The heat was beyond anything he had ever felt. His skin was blistering and smoking. But he was still alive and still conscious. Now for the hard part. Kevin said through gritted teeth. Princess Zarathis suddenly understood what he meant to do. "No, you cannot. The contact will kill you." But Kevin was already leaning forward. His burned lips moved toward her forehead, where her flames burned, brightest of all. Kevin Hayes closed his eyes and pressed his lips gently against Princess Zarathis' burning forehead. The contact lasted only 1 second, but in that moment the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The pain was beyond anything Kevin had ever imagined. It felt like kissing the surface of the sun itself. His lips burned and blistered instantly. The skin on his face cracked and smoked. But somehow he stayed conscious long enough to complete the kiss before collapsing to the stone floor. Princess Zarathis stood frozen in complete shock. In her 127 years of life, no living being had ever voluntarily touched her skin. The sensation was so strange and unexpected that she couldn't move or speak. She just stared down at the human who lay unconscious at her feet. The entire throne room erupted in chaos. Paraxian guards rushed forward to help. Emperor Vextar stood up from his burning throne with flames shooting high above his head. The Corvan ambassador was making angry screeching sounds and waving his multiple arms in disbelief. "Impossible," the Corvan leader hissed. No weak human could survive direct contact with Paraxian royal skin. This must be some kind of trick or technology. But Princess Zarathis wasn't listening to the ambassador's complaints. She knelt down beside Kevin's unconscious form and began examining his burns. His lips were blackened and cracked. The skin around his mouth was red and blistering. But he was still breathing. "Bring the healing crystals," she commanded, quickly. Several Paraxian attendants rushed away to get medical supplies. The princess had never asked for healing crystals to be used on an alien before. These crystals were among their most precious possessions, grown deep in the planet's core over thousands of years. Ambassador Lisa Carter ran across the throne room despite the dangerous heat. She dropped to her knees beside Kevin and began checking his vital signs. "Is he alive?" she asked frantically. "Yes," the princess replied, "but he needs immediate medical attention. His burns are severe, but not fatal." Captain Jake Morrison joined them, his face showing both amazement and worry. "Kevin, you crazy fool," he whispered. "You actually did it." Emperor Vextar approached, slowly, his massive form casting dancing shadows across the throne room. When he spoke, his voice was filled with wonder. "In 1,000 years of trials, no being has ever completed the test. Many have tried to touch my daughter's hand or arm. None have ever attempted what this human just did." The healing crystals arrived, carried by Paraxian medical attendants. The crystals glowed with soft blue light and felt cool despite the intense heat of the throne room. Princess Zarathis took them carefully and began applying them to Kevin's earned face. "Why are you helping him?" the Corvin ambassador demanded. "He is just another weak human. Let him suffer the consequences of his foolish actions." Princess Zarathis looked up at the Corvin with anger burning in her amber eyes. "This human just showed more courage than your entire warrior caste. He earned my respect and my care." As the healing crystals worked, Kevin's breathing became stronger and more regular. The worst of his burns began to fade slightly. His eyes fluttered open, and he looked up at the princess kneeling beside him. "Did I do it?" he asked weakly. "Did I complete the trial?" "You did more than complete it," Princess Zarathis replied, softly. "You did something I thought was impossible. You touched me and survived." Kevin tried to sit up, but the princess gently pushed him back down. "Rest. The healing crystals need time to work." "I told you it was worth the risk," Kevin whispered with a small smile, despite his burned lips. Emperor Vextar's flames grew brighter as he made his announcement. "The trial is finished. The human champion has not only succeeded, but has achieved something beyond all our ancient laws and traditions. According to our oldest customs, this proves that humanity possesses courage beyond all other species." The Corvin ambassador was practically screaming now. "This proves nothing. One human with some kind of genetic mutation does not represent their entire species. They are still weak creatures who need machines to survive in space." But Princess Zarathis stood up and faced the Corvin delegation with fire blazing around her entire body. "You are wrong. This human did not use any technology or genetic enhancement. He succeeded through pure determination and courage. More importantly, he did it not for conquest or political gain, but to show kindness to someone who has been alone her entire life." The princess turned to address her father. "Emperor, I have made my decision. If you will allow it, I wish to formally recommend that we ally with the humans rather than the Corvins." "What are your reasons?" Emperor Vextar asked. "The Corvins offer us conquest and destruction. They want to use our power to burn and destroy human worlds. But this human offered something no one has ever given me before. He offered understanding and connection despite the danger to himself." Kevin was feeling stronger now thanks to the healing crystals. He managed to sit up with Lisa's help. "Your Highness, I need you to know something. I didn't do this just to win the trial. I did it because I've seen the sadness in your eyes. I know what it's like to be different in ways that make other people afraid. Princess Zarathis knelt down beside him again. What do you mean? After my accident, doctors were afraid to get too close to me. They didn't understand what had happened to my body. People looked at me like I was some kind of dangerous freak. I spent 2 years feeling completely alone. The princess stared at him with growing understanding. You know what isolation feels like. Yes, and I could see that same loneliness in your eyes during our first meeting. No one should have to live their entire life without any physical contact with others. For the first time in over a century, Princess Zarathis felt tears forming in her eyes. The tears evaporated instantly from the heat of her skin, but the emotion behind them was real. Emperor Vextar watched this exchange with deep interest. Daughter, do you truly believe we should trust these humans? Princess Zarathis looked at Kevin, then at the other human delegates, then back at her father. Yes, father. If their entire species has even a fraction of this man's courage and compassion, they will make worthy allies indeed. The Emperor's decision would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. But first, Kevin needed time to heal from his impossible kiss. 3 days after Kevin's impossible kiss, news of the event had spread across the entire galaxy. Communication networks buzzed with stories about the human who had touched living fire and survived. Some called it madness. Others called it the greatest act of courage in recorded history. Kevin was recovering in the medical bay aboard the USS Harmony. The Paraxian healing crystals had worked better than anyone expected. His burns were healing quickly, and the doctor said he would have no permanent damage except for some small scars around his mouth. Princess Zarathis visited him every day. She had learned to lower her body temperature through meditation, allowing her to sit near his bed without causing additional burns. It was the first time in her life she had been able to have a normal conversation with someone from another species. How are you feeling today? She asked as she entered the medical bay. Kevin smiled, despite the bandages covering part of his face. Much better, thanks to your healing crystals. Lisa says I should be fully recovered in another week. The princess sat down in a chair, positioned exactly 6 feet from his bed. That was the closest she could get without her heat becoming dangerous. I have something to tell you. My father has made his decision about the alliance. Kevin sat up, straighter in his bed. What did he decide? The Corvin delegation left Paraxis Prime yesterday in anger. Emperor Vextar has chosen to ally with Earth instead. We will sign the formal treaty documents tomorrow. Kevin felt a wave of relief wash over him. That's wonderful news. What made your father finally decide? Princess Zarathis was quiet for a moment before answering. He said that any species brave enough to risk everything for understanding instead of conquest deserves our friendship. But there was another reason too. What reason? He saw how I reacted to your kiss. In over a century of life, he has never seen me show concern for another being's welfare the way I did for yours. He realized that humans might be the first species capable of true friendship with our people. Kevin thought about this for a while. Princess, can I ask you something personal? Of course. What was it like? I mean, having someone actually touch you after all these years? The princess's amber eyes grew distant as she remembered, terrifying and wonderful at the same time. For my entire life, I have been untouchable. My own father cannot embrace me without protection. I had given up hope that I would ever experience normal physical contact. And now? Now I know it is possible. Your kiss lasted only 1 second, but it proved that the barriers between us are not absolute. With care and courage, connection can happen even across the greatest differences. Over the following days, Kevin watched as the alliance between humans and Paraxians began to take shape. Princess Zarathis worked closely with human scientists to develop new heat-resistant materials. The Paraxians shared their advanced crystal technology in exchange for human knowledge about space navigation and planetary engineering. But the most important changes were happening between Kevin and the princess herself. She began teaching him Paraxian meditation techniques that helped him control his unusual heat resistance. He showed her human concepts of humor and friendship that she had never experienced before. "Your people laugh so easily," she observed one day as they sat in the ship's observation deck. "Paraxians are a serious people. We do not often find joy in small things." "Maybe that's something we can teach each other," Kevin replied. "You can show us how to be stronger and more disciplined. We can show you how to find happiness in everyday moments." 2 weeks after the kiss, the formal signing ceremony took place in the Great Throne Room. Representatives from dozens of other alien species came to witness the historic event. The alliance treaty between Earth and Paraxis Prime was the most comprehensive agreement in galactic history. Emperor Vextar signed the documents with liquid fire that burned the Paraxian symbols into crystal tablets. Ambassador Lisa Carter signed for Earth using traditional ink and paper, though special heat shields protected the documents from the throne room's temperature. "This alliance changes everything," Lisa whispered to Kevin as they watched the ceremony. "With Paraxian technology and military support, Earth will be safe from the Corvin Syndicate and any other threats." But Kevin was watching Princess Zarathis, who stood beside her father's throne during the ceremony. She had learned to control her flames well enough that she no longer posed an immediate danger to nearby humans. It was a small change, but it meant everything for future cooperation between their species. After the ceremony, Princess Zarathis approached Kevin with something in her hands. It was a small crystal pendant that glowed with soft blue light. "This is for you," she said. "It is made from the same crystals that healed your burns. Wear it and you will be able to withstand much higher temperatures than normal humans." Kevin took the pendant carefully. Even through the crystal, he could feel warm energy flowing into his skin. "Thank you, Your Highness. But why give this to me?" "Because you showed me that impossible things can become possible with enough courage. I want you to stay here as the permanent human representative to our court. Will you accept this position?" Kevin looked around the throne room at the Paraxian nobles and human delegates. A few months ago, he had been just another Marine sergeant aboard an exploration ship. Now he was being offered a chance to help build the most important alliance in galactic history. "I accept," he said simply. Princess Zarathis smiled, and for a moment, her flames burned brighter with what Kevin had learned was Paraxian happiness. "Then let us begin building a future where no one has to live in isolation because of what makes them different." 6 months later, Kevin stood on a balcony overlooking the crystal spires of the Paraxian capital city. He wore the blue pendant around his neck and formal robes that marked his position as Earth's ambassador to Paraxis Prime. His face still bore small scars from the kiss, but he considered them badges of honor. Princess Zarathis joined him on the balcony. Through months of practice and meditation, she had learned to lower her body temperature enough that she could stand within 3 feet of him without causing burns. "The morning reports show that 17 more species have requested to join our alliance," she said. "Word of human courage has spread throughout the galaxy." "It's amazing how one moment can change everything," Kevin replied. "A single kiss that lasted 1 second has led to the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history." The princess moved slightly closer, as close as she dared without risking his safety. "It was not just a kiss, Kevin. It was proof that understanding and courage can overcome any barrier. Your people call it humanity, but I think it is something even greater than that." Kevin looked out over the burning city and thought about how much his life had changed. He had started as a damaged soldier trying to prove his worth. Now he was helping to build a future where differences were celebrated instead of feared. "What do you think comes next?" he asked. Princess Zarathy smiled, and her flames danced in patterns that Kevin had learned meant hope and joy. Next, we show the rest of the galaxy, what is possible when different peoples choose friendship over fear. Together, they watched the sun rise over Paraxis Prime, two beings from different worlds who had proved that even the greatest barriers could be crossed with enough courage and compassion.